Welcome to the Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver podcast. We're happy you're here. On the podcast, we're certain that you'll relate to the caregiver stories and find comfort with your honorary sisters. Now, before we start, I want to remind you to go to our website, confessionsofareluctantcaregiver.com, and sign up for our newsletter. It's full of useful information that you can immediately use. Now, let's learn more about today's guest. Hey, Jay.
Hey, Nat.
You know,
Hey,
oh, wait.
I'm just going to jump in and say, hey.
Oh, we have a guest, Madly. Oh my
God, Jay, we have a guest. Look who just jumped on. Like it was our own conference. Like we were having a sister call and all of a sudden, boom, another person jumps on. That's so awesome. You know what? I was traveling this week. I was in the shower this morning because you're welcome. I took a shower.
I'm so glad you took a bath.
I'm so glad I took a bath. I was coming back from LA yesterday. I was thinking, you know what? I was so excited for this morning's guest because I have a professional crush on this person. Oh. And it's not an inappropriate crush. It's like, this person it's like when you meet somebody that is so cool that you hope they'll be your friend. Do you ever have somebody like that? I don't. And I think it's because I talk a lot. And so do you ever meet somebody and they're so cool. And you're like, secretly, you're like, I hope I can be like them when I grow up.
That's true.
That's Heather Zoccali.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Finally, we get to know who it is.
It's Heather Zoccali.
Oh my gosh. Is it? It's Angelina Jolie.
No, Angelina's got nothing on Heather Zoccali. So Jay, you got to tell everybody about Heather because I'm so excited to have her here with us.
That is very true. Oh, I get to talk now. This is so exciting, Heather. I never get to talk.
JJ never gets to talk. Everybody knows that too.
This, the bio is like, okay, this is the serious part. So I will give you the summary, and it is. The term for Heather is, or what everybody knows her by, is her words, beautifully beautiful, which is this term I just love. And it says, Heather lives a beautifully beautiful life. And what that means is that while she has experienced profound hardships, and you guys are going to hear about that, those same hardships that many of you have, she has found that by opening her heart to that pain and letting love fill the cracks in her heart, she's grown stronger and has found joy and happiness despite the brutal moments life has given her. She started caregiving when she was about 9, and she has cared for her mom, her father, her brother, and her son. And her story is, Heather, it's amazing. You hear it. And I think some people will say, I don't think I could have lived through that, but you've lived through it. And you have just innumerable awards, recognitions. You do a caregiver retreat in these amazing places.
I'm totally going on a retreat.
I know. So I want everybody, first of all, welcome, Heather. And you're ready. Okay.
Thank y'all. You're making me blush this early.
So, I mean, you do so much for caregivers, but it comes from your experience. Mm-hmm. Like it's from your heart of saying, hey, caregivers need help. So where's that recognition? Like, tell us about.
Where does it come from? Where did it start? Come from? You were born and then fast forward to the care part.
Yeah. I was born. It's funny. Me and my husband were having dinner last night, and I'm in the process of a project that's unearthing all these stories. Mm-hmm. And he had the same question. He's like, so what made you do this and that? And I was like, are we allowed? I won't cuss a lot. Are we allowed to cuss?
You can. I'll just say beep after.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll try not to have you guys beep then.
You're good.
We don't edit.
Totally safe.
Yeah, Heather, we don't edit, so that makes it easier.
Just go to it.
Yeah, we don't edit anything. We're not cool like that because we'd have to have money. so we don't edit.
I never know. I'm like, can you edit or can I? I don't know where the fuck it comes from, to be honest. Yeah. It just is all. It's. I think a lot of it. What I discovered after dinner riding my bike home last night was, I think at a super young age, because so much was out of my control that I couldn't control. I couldn't control my dad being sick, my mom having severe mental health, same with my brother. And then my older brother, everything that came with that, I couldn't control any of that. So I was really just intuition got me to control the things I could. And that was how I am going to react to things, which has not always been good. That's, I have a hot temper and, that's not been great in the past. I've learned and grown, especially after Connor's accident, but how to take the things that I can control. And a lot of that was finding the good parts in every, as I like to say, shit sandwich. I've had so many shit sandwiches in my life,
Yeah.
And when I was able to wash them down with a martini. So I think that being able to find a good martini, because it's a shit sandwich.
There is the episode title, Shit Sandwich with a Martini. We've done it, Heather. We're done, Natalie.
All right. Well, and thank you everybody for listening.
Yes.
That's what it's been. Well, and I'll say this, you talked about, and this is, I think about the guests that we've had in the past. And I think about one in particular that had a difficult, estranged relationship with her mom, and Consuela. If you go back and listen to this, Consuela with her mom, Pinky, and she was not the preferred caregiver. But, everybody knows I work in the mental health field. And when you start talking about individuals with severe mental illness, I know that your childhood experiences are going to also impact who you are growing up and then your relationships with them. And so you don't have a Hallmark card relationship with some folks that you've cared for, correct? Like it's
No.
we're not finding the Hallmark Channel kind of thing.
No, there will not be this happy, beautiful packaged ending. I know some people, if they, and I don't say estranged because I chose to not be in my family's life. That was a conscious choice that I was like, that is not good for me. I drown when I'm around them. And
Right.
I don't want that in my family's life either, because I do become a different person because it's so intense. And so my mom, after my dad he had a major stroke when I was 9, and it partially paralyzed him. And then we, things that go with brain injuries or, acquired brain injuries. And so my dad had the emotions of like a 6-year-old is basically. So he would go from being happy across the dinner table, and the next second I would hear, duck, and something would be chucked across the room, and so it would be, and at 9 and no one's telling you how to deal with this. My family didn't even talk about it. It was like not even mentioned. Yeah. And then my mom had, severe mental health, and she still does on top of her mixed, Alzheimer's dementia. And so mom was really, I'll keep it. I'll reel it in. She, in my head, I have a different thing that I would say. She was super abusive on every level, and she had a way, or she still kind of does. I mean, she's towards the end, but she had a way of finding the things that she knew would hurt you. Yeah. And with a joy, dug in and would expose that and go deeper, and then create such chaos, and then make you often question your sanity. That's how I felt. I was like, wait, I thought wait, like it, and that messes with you as a kid. And especially, we didn't talk about it. The only thing we did, my parents were very, very religious. I'm not, I don't care. I don't care if people pray to a tree or pray, you do you. Right. But for me, it really turned me off because it was all about, we would go, and it was Kentucky. There was snake handling, there's speaking in tongues. It was pretty intense for a kiddo. And that was the only thing they said would help. And I never found help in that. So I was like drowning, and then my younger brother has schizophrenia, and then my older brother turned to addiction, and there was sexual abuse. So there was a lot of, it was not ideal. And then having to take care of my mom when she got sick was not where I wanted to be. And I never had planned on it because I had that choice to be away. So it was
So let me ask you this. I mean, I know for some of our listeners, they're going to relate to childhood abuse and trauma. That is absolutely. And the things and how every individual responds to that is differently. And, there's that in itself is a whole like different thing. Yeah. So it's a whole different podcast and years of therapy. But if you think about it, it's true. It's true.
No, yeah. It is.
And so so I'm assuming you get out, you turn 18, you go and you get away. I'm assuming you get away because you're like,
done.
We can't divorce our families in that sense. Like they're always going to be your family, but that doesn't mean you have to remain and be in a place where it's unhealthy for you. So how do you get pulled back into caregiving? I guess that's the question. Like that's because I know you're with your mom. And then you have the injury what happens with your son when he gets it. And
I forgot to do this. I usually tell listeners, please make sure you're taking care of yourself when I tell my story.
Yes.
Do not take anything on that is not yours. This is mine. And there are triggers. So just make sure you're taking care of yourself.
Agreed.
And if we ever need a team breath, just say team breath and we'll do it.
Oh, yeah. I am all about breathing. The power of breathing, not just taking in some air. It's the power of breathing. It really works. So,
I left when I was 18 because of all, that whole craziness.
Right.
And went to Wyoming from Kentucky, loved the West, haven't left since, in Colorado now, but still love Wyoming. And during that time, I didn't have, a lot of contact. I had contact here and there with my family, but I was teaching dance in schools and loving life, and got married, had babies. I had a starter marriage in there. I don't usually mention that, but
I mostly believe you should always have a starter marriage. It's good to have.
It's like that one pancake that you take first that doesn't turn out. You're like, whoop, now I know how to do it. So.
That is the perfect way to describe your first marriage. The pancake, it's not exactly right. It's either not, the pan's not hot enough, or you didn't put enough butter in it.
You learn a lot from that one pancake.
Heather, that is amazing. Natalie, go ahead.
Everybody has had a first pancake, except for Jay. Don't worry. Anyway, after we got through the first pancake, when we got to the good stack.
After the first pancake, the good stack came, and and that's my hubby now, who's he's incredible. I have nothing but amazing things to say. Sometimes I want to like shake him, but for the majority of the time, he's pretty incredible in everything he's endured in his family. And that's where a lot of the stability and stuff comes now, because I have this incredible family that I chose, right? And they didn't choose me. I chose them. I'm like, sorry.
You had no free will.
And then actually caregiving comes into play when I got really sick, honestly, when I was about bedridden 5 years. Mm-hmm. And my husband and kids would probably say I was longer. It was 10 years of a pretty good struggle, but 5 were like deep dark. I didn't know if I was ever coming out of that.
Wow.
And it started with just really intense migraines that led to that I couldn't function. Like I couldn't move, or I would throw up so much. I would go into renal failure. I was in the hospital. Then seizures came. Then I had heart stuff. Oh my gosh, so many things, just like adrenals failed, and they were like, we have no idea what's going on. And
wow.
And then I worked with some functional doctors, and they finally said, well, I think you have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and it's a rare connective tissue disorder. Mm-hmm. And for me, connective tissues everywhere. So once I kind of figured out how all the things I have to do, I live a pretty normal life. I don't think anybody would call me normal, but I live a pretty day to day, I can function. And, but during that, the stress it put on the marriage, the stress it put on my husband for having to take care of me and 2 young kids, the stress it had with my kids. I know what it's like to see somebody who's sick as a kid, and they were beyond stressed. And so I just my parents didn't talk about anything, and I talk about everything. Sometimes the boys are like, oh my God, I don't want to talk about it. Because I'm always like, how are you feeling? Talk to me. Do we need something?
How old were your boys during that time frame, that 5 years?
Itty bitties. Connor, I think, was maybe in 3rd grade and Max kindergarten, and then all through their elementary and a little bit into their middle. And still sometimes, if I'm not feeling good, even after Connor's accident, I had a seizure and he drove me to the hospital as he was in a wheelchair and like honked and said, my mom. I mean, so he saved me. There's that flip side of he can still be a caregiver, just like I can still be a caregiver. So it's been a whole caregiver soup. And so during that, I really noticed the stress and how it goes into everything. Friendships, obviously I wasn't working much during that time. And then also the reframing how people ask, because the boys were always asked about me, and it was like, hey, they have a life, they are a person, make sure you're asking about them. Same with my husband. If he would go to a party, he'd come home, he's like, oh, I love you, but I wanted to get away from it, and all anybody wanted to do was talk about it. And I was like, you can't ask them not to do that. You have control over that part. And so that was kind of the first moment that I saw what it can do to a family, that I was conscious of it. As a kid, I wasn't necessarily knowing that I was caregiving.
No.
And after that, I'll try to get through this part, I'll make it shorter, but my eldest kiddo and I got in a huge fight one morning, March 10th, 2015. Just had our Alive Day last month. We're in May. In March we had that. We got in a big fight, and normally if we fought, he was 16, and I was fighting with him over stupid stuff like grades and who are you hanging out with, like blah, things that totally don't matter now. At that time, they seemed monumental to me. Yeah. And we left the house both without saying I love you. Make good choices is what we always said. And so we slammed the door, and immediately I had that parental guilt, like, oh man, I'm a shit mom. Like that was pretty not a great moment. And 5 minutes later, I heard the most sirens I've ever heard in my life. And I just said, gosh, I hope whoever that is okay. And I had a headache, laid down. My husband comes in the door. Why aren't you picking up the phone? And I was like, oh my God, what's your deal? I was like, I had a headache. I laid down. And he said, Connor's been in an accident. And my heart just sunk. I was like, oh my God, those sirens were for Connor. And he said, I just know he's in critical condition. We got to get down there. So that whole driveway, I was like, epic fail on the mom front. Every possible way I could fail as a mom, I did. I wasn't kind, patient, didn't protect him, didn't say I love him. And then now I wasn't going to be able to fix them. So I just had stuck in my head, I don't want that to be the last, that cannot be the last thing my son hears from me. It just, it can't. And so fast forward to when I get to see him, I ended up finding out from the doctor that he hadn't once asked about his pain, why his legs weren't working. He was on repeat. Everybody, have you gotten a hold of my mom? Have you gotten a hold of my mom?
Wow.
Can you tell her I'm so sorry I was such an asshole this morning? I'm going to be a better son.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so I was like, I'm feeling the same thing. I just need to see him.
I just need to talk to him. Oh my gosh, Heather.
And so, I get there, and he has these big blue eyes, and just tears were streaming down. And he was obviously, nurses and doctors were all around, and sounds, and he was all drugged up. And he looks at me and he's like, Mom, I'm so, and I was like, stop. Me and you weren't our best today. That's in the past. We can chalk it up as a lesson learned. But right now, like, I get to see you and hold you, and I don't know what the future is going to hold. And if there's going to be some tough moments, but I can promise you that I'm going to be beside you. I'm going to do everything I can to make it as easy as we can. And we're going to get out there and do everything we did before, just in a different way. And I had no idea what I was talking about. I didn't know what came with the spinal cord injury, but I was like, this is my promise to you. And then he turned around and said, can you fix my legs, Mom? And just everybody just went quiet and the heads went down. And I was like, shit. I was like, I can't fix them. But again, I'll be here and I promise we're going to have a kick-ass life. We'll figure it out. We just will. And so that next morning, somebody walked in and asked him, I think it was my husband or the surgeon, I can't remember, how are you feeling? And he looked up all drugged up and he's like I got hit by a fucking car. And I remember
clearly his personality,
family.
Yeah. Like, his personality comes honest.
Yeah. And so at that, because we loved our chemo, and I was like, all right, we're going to be okay. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard. But if we have our humor intact, we'll get through this.
Absolutely.
And through that we were 2 months down in Craig Hospital. It's a rehab center, one of the best in the country, which I had no idea was just an hour away from our door.
Wow.
I mean, that's handy, right? We talk about, we were lucky in a lot of ways. I know most people are like, He was a low injury that he was paralyzed. And, we had this incredible support system. We were lucky in a lot of ways to help us get through that. And so that's when I noticed too, that caregivers, I saw people, which I see you guys do too, losing their identity. It's like once you identify as a caregiver and then you over-identify and that's all you are and that's your whole world. It's like I want to do a research project on when does that happen? When do you start to lose like Heather? When do I start to lose JJ? You know what I mean? Like Natalie. Yeah. And I saw that happening before my eyes with people and I was like, oh my God, I don't want that. Like, what do I have to do to not do that? Yeah. Because I'm still me and I had just gotten healthy. And so I had the grief and loss of old Heather to new Heather with living with the sickness, so I felt like I was just rediscovering who I was again. And then seeing people lose it, that's when I knew at that moment I wanted to do something with caregivers. I just wasn't sure. And then fast forward again, another 2 years, they found the gentleman that hit him. I worked with restorative justice. I knew I needed to forgive myself, one, and I needed to forgive him. So I worked with restorative justice, which is amazing at helping you get your power and your voice and choice back. And, I was sitting across the table from the guy that hit my son, took off and left him paralyzed in a ditch. And I had worked really hard to be able to get to that point. And I said, look, I want you to know I forgive you. If anything comes out of this, I want you and Connor's life to be better, because who knows what ripple effects can come from that. And honestly, I'm here to forgive myself. And I want us to both be better than that day. That day, me and you were not good. You weren't good because you hit my son. And I found out he was an EMT. That was tough. And you left my kid unable to move, walk, all that stuff on the side of the road. I sent him off in a really crappy way. And it was the most, I had experience with forgiveness before. It was my older brother who sexually abused me. He had called and asked for forgiveness. And that was the first, I think people hear forgiveness and like forgiveness is kind of, it's a byproduct, I think, of everything. It's being able to let go and being able to do the inner work. It's not reconciliation. I wasn't going to be best friends with the guy that hit Connor, right? And absolutely. I didn't excuse what he did. But, and the same with my brother and I, we came to an agreement like, yes, I do forgive you. I need to let go of all the stuff that comes with it, like the shame and guilt that I shouldn't be having.
Right.
And then a year later, he passed in a freak car accident. And so it was a big moment for me to realize, and that could have haunted me forever. But because I chose to do the work, I saw what it did for me and what I was able to show for my boys. Because during this whole thing, my family dealt with stuff. Bitterness and anger warped and twisted them into not good humans. And I didn't want that to be the same in our family. And so I knew it was up to me to model that, because I couldn't ask them to do it if I was like being, had all this
angry and all that.
just doesn't work.
Wow.
I think you're right, because I think forgiveness is something you do for yourself, not for anyone else.
I agree with that.
And I think Oprah talks about how she forgave her mom and the What Happened to You book with, again, my professional bestie, Bruce Perry. I love you, Bruce. And it talks about how the power of forgiveness, because I guess the thing is, do you think that you would have been able to be as good of a mom and then secondary caregiver, your roles, because you're doing double duty at this point. You're always going to be the mom, but now you're a caregiver in a different way. You kind of this is where reluctant caregiver comes from. You're like, I didn't ask for this title. Yeah. I didn't want it. And you can't be a good caregiver and caregiver and parent,
right,
if you are holding on to anger, regret, guilt. I think that's so important for people to hear. And when you're caring for someone, whether, your son and what happened is something very different than your relationship with your mom. I think letting go of the past to be able to be the person you need to be to support the other person. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, 100%. I mean, that's why, when we get there, that's why I created the retreats, because I saw so many people. It's just the trauma you have from caregiving, right? Because you're experiencing, especially if you have to quit your job and all this stuff, you're experiencing grief of your old self before caregiving. And then now you have to, who am I during caregiving? And if you've already lost yourself, you're really like, okay, wait. And all the resentment and everything goes with that. But then you put that on the back burner to deal with the person that you care for, their trauma and grief. And you have all this, not to mention any other trauma or core wounds that you haven't addressed. And that helps shape how you react to certain things. So
100%,
like all of that plays into it. And it's going to come up, and it usually doesn't come up in a good, healthy way. So and it's hard. It's not, none of this stuff that I do or have done is easy. I know people are like, I'm like, no, it's not easy. It's something you have to choose. It's something you have to get really dark, and you look yourself in the mirror, and it's not always pretty. Yeah. And you need people around you that call you out, that hold you to like what you have said. And none of that is easy, but man, the rewards that you get for that and are just, to me, are worth the work. I would never not, maybe because I saw it growing up, what happens when you don't do the work and you let all that come in. That was a big, for me, like, oh God, I do not want to do that.
Yeah.
And so, for Connor, I think, and Connor would say this, it's 8 years after that, 8 years after the accident. And he's just gotten to the point where he has accepted his disability. And I remember him coming in one day, and he's like, I realized, he was at a therapy session. I'm probably get emotional, but he was like, he just let me talk. And Mom, I just talked and talked and talked. And I realized I don't like change. And the reason I'm so resistant to it is because I was forced to change in such a hard way. And so I don't want to change anymore. And I was like, shit. And I was like, yeah, wow, thank you for sharing that. And what else? And he's like, I think I'm just accepting that I am disabled. I think in my head, I was like, nope, not going to do it. I'm pushing it to the side, even though he's visibly, right? He has to do things every day that none of us have to do. And so I think a lot of it is when I think things play into caregiving when you're in just life, when you can start to heal, is one, the acceptance. And for me, a lot of my acceptance it's just been bad random moments. There is no why. I've never asked why, because that takes me down a dark hole that I'll never be able to understand, or any of that. So sometimes accepting just the randomness of it is kind of like, okay, well, I guess that's happening. And then understanding and then accepting, and then that frees you up to be able to go into the other stuff. And, but yeah, and then also keeping it real. I think I've talked with you guys about this, like kind of hashtag real talk. I learned that really quick. And so I was like, I am not going to feel guilty or angry about how I'm feeling, because I'm human. Like, that's crazy to think my thoughts like control me. And so there was that moment in the hospital when Connor, he's 16, he's still 16 in a care, and we're together 24/7. no 16-year-old is 24/7 with them. And I was so frustrated with him. He was being such a little, and I was like, oh my God, I want to push you out of this chair right now. I'm not going to do it, but that's how I feel. And he was like, I want to run over your toes. And I was like,
what?
And then I was like, wow, we need to not spend so much time together because we're driving each other back. And then I remember, after that, we really took time to be apart, and we would have our #real talk moments. Like, I really don't like you right now. I love you, but I don't like you. So I'm going to go away because, and that freed up a lot of space too. I just think we sometimes, I don't know. I mean, for me, I think when it came to caregiving, there is this persona out there like, oh, you're so amazing, so amazing, la, la, la. And you're like, oh my God, it sucks. I do not want this. I never, like you said, this was not my childhood freaking dream,
No.
And so that, again, understanding it was random, accepting that this is where I'm at, and then moving forward, like, okay, so what can I control in these situations? And I can control it.
It's funny. So we always mention our favorite people in life. And like I said, Bruce, love you, Bruce. But Sue Ryan talks about radical acceptance, and just absolutely, that's what I hear you saying over and over, is just like, I have to accept this so I can move on. Because you could have chosen to be like, I agree with you on the why. Like, why is my life this way? Why did I get the dumpster fire? Because that's always referred to caregiving as dumpster fire. It's just a complete, respectfully, it's a shit show. And anybody who is like saying, oh, this is, you're exactly right. Caregivers don't want to be looked at like they're the second coming or Pollyanna. Because I'm going to tell you right now, deep down inside, every one of us thinks I'd rather be somewhere else. Like, I want to have my relationship with that person. Like, I want to have a good relationship with my mom anyway. And that's got to be worked on, but I don't want it with Parkinson's on top of it. Like, I didn't ask for all the extra crap on top of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. So you have your son who you're going with. So you're continuing down this path, because I'm a big God believer. So I believe God's got big plans for you, because it's very evident to me, like, you were meant to go down this path. Like, because there's so much that you're doing with it. Like, you took it, and you could have took it. And at any point in your life, I think you could have wallowed in it. You could have just gotten stuck. You could have gotten stuck in, this is not great. Your mom starts, I want to go into a little bit about your mom. If that's okay. And so I want to think about that, because your mom starts, she's back in Kentucky, I'm assuming.
Yeah, back in Kentucky. My brother called me, and I knew if he was calling me, because we didn't have contact, it was bad. And he said, you need to come home. They're not good. And so I get home, and y'all, talk about all the stuff that I don't know. Forgiveness has been like a theme in my life, because I had a lot of guilt when I saw them, because I honestly don't know how they were functioning. Like, my brother was in a state, and my mom and dad, it was really bad. And, so I just got to work there in rural Kentucky. So I knew the stuff wasn't, I was like, man, there's gotta be, so I just went to town. You know what I mean? Like, okay, what do we got to do? Blah, blah, blah. And had it all set up, and I got home. It was at 2:00 on my third day there, and I hadn't eaten, like, total caregiver thing, and I was like beaten. I'm like, why are you doing this? Like, you have to take care of yourself. And so I'm just like, if I don't eat, I might pass out. And I'm cooking tacos, and my dad comes in and asks me, where's my medicine? Just yelling at me. And I was like, it's in the car. I have to eat right now. It just can't always be about you. And it was like, I shouldn't have said that, but I did. And then he made the choice to end his life. And so, he passed suicide, and that was obviously like, holy, that was not expected, was not thinking of that. And then at that, after we were safe and everything and got mom out, they thought she was having another heart attack, just everything that comes after that immediate, and then all the stuff that comes after that. And my mom was in clear cognitive decline. There was no question about it. And then her mental illness was like, it was bad.
Exactly. Do you think I think being, and nobody talks about individuals with severe mental health, and because your mom has Alzheimer's dementia, right?
Yeah, she has vascular and end stage Alzheimer's. So it's a mix.
Heather, I'll back up here. So she had always, during the time, because your dad had the stroke and he had always dealt with that. Had she always been the caregiver, even with all that during that time? Had she had help coming in, or?
That's the part that, like, as I'm starting, like, that kind of unexpected piece that comes later, which I'll tell y'all about. Yeah, she was incredible in the fact that a strong woman who had her own career, won awards, was incredible. And she did take care of dad and I mean, raised she had 3 kids, but long story for Brian. But yeah, I mean, she did that. And she had her mental illness, which she really did mask it well for work. We just got the brunt of it at home.
Wow.
So she was incredible in that. Like, when I think back, because Matt was like, my husband was like, what are some good moments? And I was like, she always impressed me with how she might have been out of town like 3 hours working down in Nashville, or, like an hour working down in Nashville. And I was in theater and dance, and she would come and she would physically be there at all my shows, so she made it a point to be there. I think just her mental illness, and then obviously the burnout of life and not dealing with her trauma. She had lots of trauma before that, and she never dealt with it or didn't have the tools to know how to deal with it.
Right.
That played into everything. And, and so, she was incredible in that sense. Just the mother part, I don't think she was really meant to be, a mom, but if you look at what she accomplished with all that, it is pretty impressive. And I think too, when you have the mental illness on top of the cognitive, once we brought her back, so I was faced with the decision, my brother wasn't able to take care of her.
Right.
And so I did, I've never said this. Okay, it's confession. I did leave her. I was like, well, maybe it's not as bad. We went to the neurologist there, a rural Kentucky neurologist. And that's a whole nother story on how she was in end stage. And he was like, she's fine. I think she's just thrown off from all this. So I took his word and I said, okay, I think maybe we'll try it a couple months. And if I need to come back, I'll do that. And the sheriff called and he's like, she is calling every day. She thinks someone's in her house. She's doing and that was stuff we had growing up. And I was like, oh, and so I was like, I got to come back, bring her. And I was looking for caregivers to come in. And my brother was checking. He's like, I'll check on her. But then he wasn't checking on her. And I was like, all right, this isn't going to work. And so I had to make the choice to bring back this woman who had caused such pain and chaos. And I mean, just pretty horrible things that she did.
Yeah.
And I had wanted to protect my family from it. And so she lived with us, for about she came in maybe April, and then she was gone by Thanksgiving, and it just blew our family up. I was like, this would be the one thing that ends us. We've been through so much, because my family, the boys and Matt, were so not used to someone that you love treating you that way. They didn't know how to handle it. It was breaking them. Like, I was watching them break. Wouldn't come to the house. Max was ready to move out with his girlfriend, and Matt was like, I can't do this. I think if we don't figure something out, I can't be here. Wow. And so I was like, that's not gonna work.
Yeah.
You can't sacrifice your life. I think there comes a point, and everybody, Heather, I think, and I want you to keep going, but I think about people are like, who say, oh, of course I would always take care of my parent. I'll always do this. It's this obligation. And I think you have to you got to make it intentional. It's a conscious decision to say, I will not ruin my life.
Yeah.
Well, it's the big, I will never put you in a nursing home. And
yeah,
I think
it's that statement.
it's that statement. And so many people say that, and then you end up with a situation like yours, or there are other situations, and you're like, wait a minute, how I said that, and we hear so many times people say, never say that.
Never
Because
say
you don't know
never.
you don't know what the circumstances may be. So
And too, like I had worked too hard my whole life to get where I was. And I worked hard to have the family I had. And trust me, I got judged all the time for how open I was with the boys, whether it was sex or drugs, whatever it is. It was like, whatever it is, we'll talk about it. Nothing's off the table. And offline, there's a hilarious story about that with Max and Connor at our first night out from the hospital. But oh Lord, that came back to bite me a little bit. I was like, ooh, not expecting to talk about that. But I made the door open. And so I was like, no, this isn't going to happen. And so, I was like, you're going to live somewhere else. You can't live here. My family's too important. My health is too important. I worked too hard on that. And so I got her into a home where she was safe. And, but it was a struggle, man, to talk about. That was the mental illness part, because they were just treating the Alzheimer's, and they got there like, wait, there's more. I'm like, yeah, there's a lot more. And she, honestly, at one point, she had physically abused so many people that I thought they were going to kick her out. And I was like, at that point, I'll have to turn her over to the state. I'm not taking her back, because, that's how she was. And then they finally got her meds adjusted where she calmed down. And during that time, I was like, I can't see her every week. I can't come in and physically see her, because it throws me for such a loop. None of my family, my husband will come with me if I ask him, but I obviously not asking the boys or anything to come. And I said, I text with her head nurse every day. And then it got to the point where I was like, I think let's just do 3 FaceTimes a month, and then I'll come see her once a month. I was like, that's what I can do. And they have been so good and supportive of that. And they're like, absolutely. And I was like, yeah, she's a handful. We saw that. Like, and in a way, y'all, it was so, this might sound horrible, but I don't care. Yeah. For the first time in my life, I felt like people saw my mom. I had these stories and no one believed me. They're like, your mom's
it's validated. Heather, it's being validated. Like, because honestly, for a parent who can fake it in front of everybody, I'll say this. People need to be careful about throwing stones and judging, because you don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
You never know.
And so we don't need your judgment. And actually, I don't actually give a damn if you judge me or not. And
that's so like, whatever, believe what you want. I don't have time. I don't have space. You're not renting any space in me. Sorry.
What amazes, I guess, for me, Heather, is that you are able, because now out of all of us, I'm like the one that has the difficulty.
Guilt is powerful.
The guilt, but it's the boundary issue.
It is the boundary.
And you kind of drew the line in the sand. You were like, okay, I see, because I guess for me, it's the impact for my health and things right now in particular is you drew the lines. You're like, okay, this is where I can say, okay, I can't see her every week. I can't call every day. Okay, the 1 month is what I can do. So how, how did you do that? Like, where did you get that? Where did that come? Where did you get that?
Can we bottle that up and sell that? Because so many of us need the I'm okay with once a month.
Yeah. I mean, that's you kind of, is that like something you just found within yourself to say, this is where my limits are? Is that?
Yeah, I do a lot of self check-ins. Like I definitely, when something's going on, I sit with myself. I give my time to sit. I don't judge it. I'm just like, man, you're cranky lately, or this is happening. What's going on? Like I talk to myself, like, what's going on, Heather? And so like, talk to me, like something is off. And if I'm not quite sure, because the other thing too, I think is really important that we don't all understand. And my talk therapy can only get you so far.
Right.
We have 40,000 neurons in our heart that for everything that we experience, those neurons experience it independently of how our brain does. So we've experienced it here. But then if we haven't dealt with like our body and how, body keeps score, that book,
I love The Body Keeps the Score. And it's true, Heather.
And so in our hearts, if we haven't dealt with that, whether that's somatic therapy or regulating our nervous systems, things like that, then we haven't healed from that trauma. And then after you've dealt with that wound in the heart, where is it stored in your body? And so when I see a scan, that's what I'm like, okay, what's going on? Like logically, I know why I'm feeling, but like, I have this wound in my heart still that I like, where do I have to go to that? And then it's the work of what do I need to do to protect that while I'm healing? What do I need right now for me? What do I need to ask people for support for? And a big one is this, I have a request for support. And this is how you can help me. Thank you for supporting me. Yeah. So I give myself permission to ask for that. You know what? I need support right now. My support is I can't see mom every week. I can see her once a week in person or once a month in person. And 3 months, that's what I need you to support me. You may not agree with it. You may agree with it. I don't care. This is what I need. And so after I do that it's that work scanning. What do I need? Like, JJ, what do you need right now? And not judging it. Like, if you think this is what I need, but it's going to sound horrible, it's just that, like, screw that. Put it out the window. Like, if that's what you need and that's what your body's, and what is your body telling you? Are you tired? Are you anxious? Like, where are you feeling it? Because your body is telling you what you need. It's just whether or not we take a moment to listen and like, where is that stress being stored and what is the cause of it? And with that, that's what I realized. I could see myself kind of like I did in the hospital, kind of slipping with mom. And I'm like, this is not, I can't do this. This is not good for me. And I'm going to do what's good for me because life is too freaking short. I want to enjoy the rest of the life that I have. I want to be healthy as I can be. And like, I deserve that. I deserve that love. I'm worth it. I'm worth giving myself that. And if I don't treat myself that way, then other people aren't going to treat me that way.
Oh, wow.
I love you, Heather.
I'm taking that with me, what you just said. If I don't do that, then other people aren't going to treat me that way.
Nobody.
That's mine.
You have to love yourself. The Body Keeps the Score is by Bessel van der Kolk.
Y'all are
that's what I was.
Yes,
that's why I was looking to the left because people can't. Our listeners won't see me, but we have a YouTube channel that has the recording of this, and I'm looking at my bookshelf because that's Bessel van der Kolk and talks about the impact on the body that trauma can experience. And I'm going to say this, and I know Heather, you probably would agree with it. Caregiving is a traumatic experience.
Oh, 100%.
I think people have got to understand the toll that it takes not only on you mentally, but also physically, because the brain body connection and how your body internalizes that trauma. And why am I so cranky? Or it's really that self-awareness of how you're feeling that's when you have to like put on the brakes and say, know your triggers, know yourself. Like, I don't act this way. And it sneaks up on you. Like it sneaks up on you, being a total beagle. Cause I've been a total beagle before and I'm like, where did that come from? And the moments where I think we've all said, I can't believe I said that. I felt pushed, but I can't believe I said that. And then it comes out and I'm like, ooh, the signs were there.
Yeah.
Signs were there. And I should have been more careful with myself, not with that person. I should have been more thoughtful to myself.
Yeah, I think it's just that self-awareness is so huge. And again, I don't think caregivers, from what I've experienced and what I've seen, my husband's I need my charger for my.
Oh, thanks, boo.
Hey. He's an amazing caregiver. Like, he's the best caregiver.
You know what makes you feel better? Do you notice that I suddenly had a drink, Heather? That's because my husband walked in. My awesome husband walks in because he makes my shake every morning, and he just hands it to me and says, he doesn't say a word. He's like in the middle of the night. He's like, here you go. And so, yes.
So we all need
after this, Matt will be like, how do you do that, honey? Stop being so present. If you your battery is low, bring the charger in. I was like, oh, I didn't think about it. So
I think, well, I know kind of, I think those nuggets of wisdom, those words of advice, those are things that, whether you're a caregiver or not, are things that you need to apply to your life every day, because it's not just caregiving. It's in all of the relationships and the interactions we have with other human beings.
And an exercise, that I tell people to do during a day, just be aware. And even like I'll write them down. I put it in my phone. Any negative thought that comes in, write it down, that you're saying about yourself, like, oh, I don't want to get in that swimsuit, or I don't want to like do this or that, all those little things we tell ourselves, and then look at it at the end of the day and think about, would I ever say that to a family member or a friend?
That's right.
No, I wouldn't. Why am I saying it to myself? And don't judge it, just become aware of it. And then when it comes in, I always try to, and same with the boys, even I say it on stuff like, oh, I'm directionally challenged. Then I stop saying that. I'm like, I have a lot of opportunity for growth when it comes to direction driving.
I have a lot of opportunity for growth.
Me and Siri need to become really good friends.
Yeah, she does not like me, or I don't listen to her. I'm not sure what it is, but so just that moment of like when you say something negative, just like kind of, it's that shadow work. Like I know part of the retreats we talk about what is something that represents you at your worst, kind of at your essence, and then when you're way up here. And for me, my worst is a scorpion. Like I going for the kill, and like that's where I'm at. And we don't like the scorpion to appear, but I reframed it like, scorpions are patient. They're really good hunters. They, you know what I mean? The good qualities about that. So, when I hear a negative thought, I'll stop and I'll just reframe it. And so now it's just kind of, because we all have them, we're human. You're going to have self-doubt. You're going to have negative talk, but becoming aware of all the things and then telling yourself, wait, I wouldn't say that to a friend, so why am I doing that? Mm-hmm. And writing yourself love notes. I think it's so important to write yourself a note, like, dear JJ, dear Elliot, dear Natalie, dear Heather, like all those things to be kind to ourselves. And so that was a super long, like ADD, what you were saying. How did you get the boundaries? But it comes from doing all that work. And then also finding ways, like how can I set up boundaries for people? Yeah. And for me, I work till 2 and I'm done, because my youngest son works out with me, which is amazing. At 20, he wants to hang out with his mom. And so nothing comes in between that. Wow. And then I have calendar declines. And like, if I have time that's just for me every day, it automatically declines people from putting something on there. Mm-hmm. I tell people in my email, I only check email twice a day. I'll respond when I check it. A lot of, it's setting up that time. And then even with your family, hey, 4 to 5 in the morning is my time. Don't mess with it. Just setting up those things, and you'll always get pushback with boundaries. That happens, but it is really telling of the people around you. Like, that's okay. I'm understanding how this is working, and then sticking to your guns on that. So I think having tools to set boundaries, and then knowing you have complete permission. No is a complete sentence. You can just say no. You don't have to tell anybody anything. Like, no.
No is a complete sentence.
So here's the thing. I just wrote down no is a complete sentence. JJ's right. I can tell you're writing it down.
No is a complete sentence.
I'm going to stop us on no is a complete sentence, because that's fantastic. And that is these words. I mean, so many kernels and nuggets of wisdom that Heather's given us. But now it's time, JJ, for sister questions.
I know.
Nothing better.
So I'm going to use my sister question as just one more piece of information, because I could be on with Heather forever. So I know we're going to have lots of information and links for Heather. Heather, tell me just a little bit about caregiver retreats for caregivers that are out there. Tell me where they came from quickly, and tell me how people can get more information.
Oh, good question.
Yeah, they came from me wanting a space to be able to deal with my trauma, from me wanting to not talk about caregiving. The retreats are for you, and that usually freaks people out. And they're like, wait, we're not going to talk about my care. I'm like, no. We're talking about you. Rediscovery of self. I love nature. So they're nature-based retreats. We're in nature a lot. There's all the research of nature as a healing. She's our biggest caregiver, Mother Earth. And we should listen to her and take her advice and the care she gives us. And you can find right now they're in Maine. We're working on some in Colorado and Utah, and they are 4 days, 3 nights, and we go through our pillars, and then awareness, all those things, a connection. And my guides that are on it are all caregivers as well. So everybody, you're there, we're caregivers, we're either in it, we have done it. And so we get it. It's a non-judgmental space. I eliminated politics and religion because that is divisive. And I was like, we're all here to heal. Everybody deserves to heal. That should not matter where you are. And there's 1,000 things we can be different on, but we have one thing at least we connect on, and that we're human. The second is that we all have a caregiver journey. And I guarantee there's other things we can connect on. And so that's big for me, is that connection. And then being around people that get it and being able to have real talk, being able to a majority of people on those retreats, because we do create this space, and I'm open and vulnerable, and you get different levels of how you want to participate. I just ask that you participate, but that can look totally different. It can be, I don't want to share today. Thank you. And because you just used your voice and your choice there. So that's awesome. Thank you. You can totally have that. And then we have a lot of fun. There's so much laughter and silliness, and you make lifelong friends, and then you learn healing modalities to take with you to help you on your journey. And then you also learn how to have boundaries, and then you have a community of people that keep you accountable. Like we have people that met in 2017 and they still meet, are on text threads, go on trips together. It's like you have a family there that gets really close really quick, and they help keep you accountable. I mean, Elizabeth Miller is partly my accountability, because after my accountability buddy, after she came on a retreat and then became a guide, and we're in the space, we ask each other, what are you going to do? Okay, I'll text you, make sure you're doing it. Are you doing it? And so you have those things that people get it and understand. You can find out about all the retreats on our website at Brutally Beautiful Life, and on the events page. And we have one for caregivers in October in Maine. Then we have one for professionals like you guys. If you work with caregivers, it's geared towards that. And we have an alumni one, and we're working on grief or after caregiver ends, because that's a big part of the journey that doesn't get a lot of love. And again, it's going through all those feels after, just kind of backwards.
Well, and I think, we talked with our friend Michelle Hauk the other day, and she talked about she's trying to figure out who she is. And I think, and I can attest to that, after caregiver ends, I think when we talked to Christina, another friend of ours whose mom passed, and you can see it. The interesting part is, like, some people are very much give it to you. Like on her Facebook page, she gives it to you. She's talking about what it's like. And most people don't have the courage to talk about what it's like, because it puts you in such a vulnerable place. It opens you up to judgment. And when you're right, I'm not going to give you, you're not renting space inside me. Your judgment's not going to take up space in me. I think that's so important to talk about what life is after caregiving ends, because most people don't think about that. So I think I love that. Love.
Thank you. Well, and I'll add, it's important. That's why for me, this work is so important, because if you don't lose yourself during care, or if you lose yourself and then find yourself again, then it makes that transition easier. Because anyways, did that answer your question?
It
Where
did.
to find us?
Yes.
Okay.
And
We will have
post
all the links in the
Okay.
show notes, guys. Everybody will see it. All right. And here is the last and favorite question of all time because it's mine. What is your favorite guilty pleasure? Just you. Your guilty pleasure.
I have many. No.
What's your favorite one? Fave. You're like, oh, this is my go-to, and I'm not sharing that with anyone. It's all mine.
I think it has been for a while. My family makes total fun of me, but I don't care. I love K-dramas, Korean dramas, and I could binge like a whole series.
I love how specific it is. It's Korean dramas.
Yes, I'm
and
like
you could,
obsessed.
okay, that makes me so happy.
We've had that is the first for that. I mean, we've had
nobody else has said. Like you're right. Somebody did say Highlander, and they said because there can only be
caramels. Like we've had a lot of stuff, but Korean dramas.
And Candace was strawberries, dark chocolate covered strawberries, and what's his name from 300? What's his name? Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe.
I'm pretty sure Candace.
Not 300, but Gladiator.
Yeah. Oh, Lord, he'll make your teeth sweat.
Yeah. So we've had a lot, but Korean drama.
That's a first. Maker's Mark. So
Heather,
we love you.
You have been a blessing today. We love when people come on and they give us our nuggets. It's like a therapy session for us. I don't think people realize that you come on as a guest and we actually get a therapy session, and it's a blessing, and you have blessed us. I know they've blessed the listener. If you're out there, I know you've gotten a blessing from it. So,
well, thank you so much, Heather. And so we will have all the good information in our show notes. Absolutely. You definitely want to go and check out Heather's website, which is brutallybeautifullife.com. Mm-hmm. And definitely check her out and follow her on all social medias. She's everywhere. She's kind of like us. And if you're not sure, just inbox us. We'll get you connected because sharing is caring. And so that's the best way. So everybody, thanks so much, Heather. Thanks for being with us. Until next time when we confess again. Thanks.
Bye.
Well, friends, that's a wrap on this week's confession. Again, thank you so much for listening. But before you go, please take a moment to leave us a review and tell your friends about the Confessions podcast. Don't forget to visit our website to sign up for our newsletter. You'll also find the video recording of all of our episodes on the Confessions website and our YouTube channel. Don't worry, all the details are included in the show notes below. We'll see you next Tuesday when we come together to confess again. Till then, take care of you. Okay, let's talk disclaimers. You may be surprised to find out, but we are not medical professionals and are not providing any medical advice. If you have any medical questions, we recommend that you talk with a medical professional of your choice. As always, my sisters and I at Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver have taken care in selecting the speakers, but the opinions of our speakers are theirs alone. The views and opinions stated in this podcast are solely those of the contributors and not necessarily those of our distributors or hosting company. This podcast is copyrighted and no part can be reproduced without the expressed written consent of the Sisterhood of Care, LLC.